Welcome to this short presentation. It's a dry run of a presentation that I'm going to give in 2 days. It's going to be a presentation at a big German car manufacturer place in Ingolstadt with the Audi company, and an event with, I don't know, 30 people. And this is kind of a dry run in English. One of the goals is to spread this content in English as well, and also to give you some insight of how we have transformed our company into a truly agile organization. Hopefully it's going to have some content that you can learn from, that you may want to adopt in your own organization. And as this is the only slide in this presentation that gives you a background about Seibert Media, let me share. We have 150, maybe it's 155 employees right now. We had revenues of 26 million euros last year in 2018. And we earn our money mainly through creating and reselling Atlassian software, which is, you may know, Jira, Confluence. We've built in Internet Suite built on Atlassian Confluence, which is called Linchpin, and we have a diagramming solution and other stuff. The other slides really refer to the goal of this presentation to show you how we organize ourselves and how you can organize your company or your team to unleash more of their potential. Let's move on. So this presentation is separated into 2 sections. In the first section, I'll focus on what changes for you as a leader if your company starts an agile transformation. So if you're in a classic organization and this now has understood that agile methodologies have a lot of cool things that they want to adopt, there are 5 things that I want to highlight that you can do as a leader in this type of transitioning organization. And it's mainly focused on you as a leader. And then the next step, I will try to highlight some fundamentals of extreme agile leadership, as we call it. So what has transformed Seibert Media or leadership in Seibert Media? How did that change? That's full of real-life examples from our company and things that actually work. I'll not bore you out with stuff that doesn't work. We've heaps of that. In 2 or 3 situations, it may help. But mainly I want to share stuff that works for us so that you can think of how you could adapt this for your company, or if it's something that you may want to try out in an experiment in your organization. That's kind of the goal. Let's start with 5 important things that change for leaders in an agile company. It's only those 5 things actually, and they're things like I'm going to be talking about, is that real? Like, will we be talking about, should you rather pretend to be part of this agile transition, or is there actually an agile transition taking place? That's actually a question that you should ask us. We're going to be talking about transparency and trust, about software tools, how they can help you make it or even fake it if you need. I think tools are both highly overestimated and at the same time highly underestimated. We're going to be talking about this. I'll try to make a point for small steps, for small experiments, why I think that is important, and it's probably not the natural thing that classical companies tend to do, and how you need to kill attribution, like bonuses and things that may become pretty nasty if you actually want to change something in your company. It's not easy, this 5th point. So let's start. Is it real? I've called it the litmus test because you want to be sure to answer this question, first question in your current situation for your organization. Because if it's not real, if it's only a fake fad, a campaign that you want to do, then it's not a good idea to be the only user trying to adopt Agile while everybody else tries to stab you in the back. That's just a question that you need to answer. Let me give you an example of a really good book by Adam Grant. I'll have it in my book recommendations later. It's called Give and Take. And the story in a nutshell is there are givers. They unconditionally give and never ask for something back. And there are takers, and they always take no matter what. And there are matchers. They try to balance out giving and taking. And the best strategy, according to Grant, is to be a giver. But if you meet a taker, you'd have to transform into a matcher. Otherwise, you'll be a doormat, because the taker will always take, you'll always give, and then the giver strategy is not right. So always be a giver. If you meet a matcher, if you meet a taker, become a matcher. And if you try to transform this to a company who wants to become agile, you want to be the perfect agilist. If they really mean it, like if they really want to transform the company top down and the management is truly behind that, you want to be the #1 agilist and really adopt this thing. If it's more of a taker strategy, so let's get more out of our employees, then it's probably better to be an actor. And acting is exactly what's taking place when we're talking about the stage and the backstage. Because I've learned that from Lars Vollmer, a good friend of mine, and he's calling that business theater. And if you're on the main stage, you always play a role and nothing else. That's your job. That's role. On the backstage, Agile is still an awesome strategy. So especially if you're in control of a team, you can offer them I call that a political defense shield for this team, where you can instill Agile in this area, and everyone's protected from the business theater, but you still have to play business theater on the stage. And if you're trying to change the stage, you have to be mighty. If you're not the mightiest guy, like the CEO who can rule it all, I would highly recommend not to try to change it. It's truly a top-down thing. If you're not on the top of things, it's going to be a futile and also not very fulfilling endeavor to try to instill Agile into a company. I would rather wait until top management really gets it and try to instill Agile in my small area where I can have this political defense shield. And you can rather shine with your results and of your Agile team that truly works Agile, and then accumulate more power to get a bigger political defense shield. That's probably going to help yourself and your team much more. There's a big difference between buying Agile and being Agile. And what you can ask yourself is, does our management really want all employees to participate? Do we have the need and the willingness to change for the benefit of the company and our customers at large? Or is it more of a campaign that we buy to motivate our employees? And then also, do I want to support this? Who and how will I benefit from this change personally? And I assume that people get it pretty straight ahead. It's pretty difficult to fake that, because there's so many points where you can find out whether, for example, people really trust employees, if they really want to make things transparent. And please excuse that there is a lot of German in my slides. As I said, it's a dry run for German presentations, so a lot of the slides are German. And the English parts will become German in the next 2 days as well. So please bear with me with the German terms. I'm going to try to make sense of the things that we really need. And everything else you can look up if you want, but I hope it doesn't disturb too much. But if you're talking about salaries, which we will do later, or if you're talking about books, strategies, you'll have a lot of situations where people can easily find out whether you truly want to make your company an agile company, or if you're just trying to optimize specific things in your organization. And depending on that, if you're a leader, those situations will teach you how to behave, whether it's just a role that you play on the stage, or whether truly the stage and the backstage are trying to be transformed by your management. And basically, in my opinion, transparency and trust are fundamental decisions that have to be taken top down. So the CEO and the board of directors and all the people who accumulate all the power in your company, they have to decide that certain things should be transparent, that trust is something that you want to put in or put on your employees, and really give them the freedom that they need. It's something that will test you over and over as a manager, and it's very easy to cheat. Just not to share, just not to do this, and people find out very easily. So it has to be a top-down decision. And I think the things that turn employees down the most is if people say that they have freedom, and at the same time they're being double-checked all the time, as if they couldn't be trusted, because they will take away the money of the company, they will spend on travel expenses, and only book the expensive things and the stuff. Something that should be, like, if you're really trying to get an agile organization, a lot of people try to add something, like a project that will create the new agile transformation, or this restructuring, this change initiative. But actually what you should try to do is you should stop starting new things. You should start killing existing methods and things. And another good business friend of mine, Lisa Flieging, he has an awesome list of things, and there's a lot of things. Like, anyone raise his hand who doesn't do any of these things in his company, and there's a lot of like sales bonuses, performance reviews, planning, dress codes, org charts, budgeting. There's a lot of things that a lot of companies do and that are questionable, and it would totally be like too much to go into every single of these elements and tell you why this is not a good idea for an agile organization. But there's a lot of things that you can stop. There's no need to start new things. Like, getting a leaner, a clearer organization is getting much closer to an agile organization than starting new things that instill that awesome trust thing and so on. So the third thing that I really live and breathe for is software tools. Like, Seibert Media really loves for helping teams to become better with software. And the cool thing in software, in my opinion, is that it's very versatile. Like, a lot of people tell, oh, with all this digitization, with this agile transformation, with this automation things, people overestimate the importance of software and technology. And while this is true, and if I said like being agile or buying agile is something that a lot of our customers, they use Jira, and it's a tool to cement the status quo. So if you look at your own organization, it's very likely that you're using Atlassian Jira. And then ask yourself, is it a vehicle to foster agile collaboration in your company? Or is it more cementing the status quo? are you using it to tweak and optimize what you actually have? Or is it actually a tool that's transforming your company? And the same goes with Atlassian Confluence. Like if we roll out these intranets, there are companies that really dream of having the participative power of Wikipedia within their own organization. They want to use workflows and restricted communication tool, or like what they actually do is they create sometimes, like if they don't want this participative thing, they create a restricted rights management to nearly make it a read-only top-down communication tool, like an intranet one for all. And we see both successfully deployed. And to be perfectly honest, we even support both ways for companies. So tools can help you make it or fake it. And it's, if you're looking at nuclear power and the atomic bomb, they're based on the same science. Like, and that's also something that is very dangerous with Agile, because you really have to ask why you want to do things and how and what, and then it's very difficult to support this good cause. Like if you're the good cause in this thing here would be the nuclear power plant, because it's going to give me economic growth, and the bad thing is the atomic bomb. We're in a very lighter way here. Agile could be the good way, and waterfall or the traditional management style of doing things could be the old style thing. And let me give you an example from our own company where we really screwed up. So we tried to be a company that would give employees purpose and meaning. We wanted to let them choose who could become our clients and who couldn't, because they were doing evil things. So we had an Ethikrat, so an ethics council. It consisted of a couple of employees, and they were thinking of what type of business will we be supporting with our work there, and should this be our customer or not. And they kicked a customer who earned 40% of their revenues with cruise missiles. So steering missiles into the right target, weaponry stuff. Evil. Everybody was happy. Until our contact came back and said, oh, I'm kind of irritated because we're on the other part of the business. We're only doing civil navigation of ships. So no weapons involved at all. And then people said, oh, he's lying. He's only telling us. He's probably part of the cruise missile things. And he's just pretending to be in there. But according to all data that we could collect of this company, and also from the staff that we had in workshops already, it was right what he said. But the decision was taken, so off he had to go, and customer couldn't be served. Then a German company who created tanks came and wanted to buy licenses from us. Just a simple financial transaction. So they buy license, we give them the license keys, and that's it. No services involved. Was a big deal, and obviously tanks evil, so we didn't do it. Turned them down. Customer also was very irritated and asked, oh, sorry, what should I do? Can you refer me to someone else? And then we did. We went to another partner, an Atlassian partner, and they were partying away for us giving them this awesome deal, and they took it, they did it, and they kept calling us for similar instances where they said, oh, you're always giving away this awesome business. Could you give us more? And actually we were a competitor, right? So that didn't feel that well. And then at one point, the Ethikrat questioned our biggest customer back then. It was Allianz Insurance Company, and they had been involved in some money-making, unethical money-making in Africa with the trade of water. So people had to die or whatever because they didn't get the Allianz traded water, and Allianz would bring up prices for water this way. I didn't dive deep into this discussion, but this thing actually killed Etigrad, because if Etigrad would have been able to kill Allianz Insurance Company, back then our biggest customer, we would have been dead. So we would have gone out of business because we thought some things that Allianz did were unethical. I have no idea whether Allianz was involved in this unethical and evil thing, and maybe they had, but back then I understood that we can't change the world this way by just turning down customers. And to cut a long story short here, it's worthwhile to find out a pragmatic path between what life demands and what truly is agility that helps you progress. And all agility is only helpful if it fits your situation. Just applying it to everything is not good. Like if you're like Niels Fliegen, for example, he's deciphering things from blue and red. Like the blue things are complicated and the red things are complex. And if you have blue things, like complicated things, you can manufacture them in factories. You can really use the Frederick Taylor style of management to, and the style of management that we all know, to make this efficient and to drive down costs. That's awesome. If you're dealing with complex things, you have to really cope with complexity and deploy humans. And this is a different thing then. So make sure that that you really choose pragmatically and not decipher between, oh, this is not agile, so I'm not going to do it. Then the next thing is take small steps. Experiments, in my experience, are things that don't go so well with a lot of traditional companies. And that's unfortunate, because those small steps that come with experiments, and also failing experiments, are the things that you can learn the most with. So it doesn't help a lot if you say, if Google can be agile, we can as well, and then you simply adopt everything that Google does. Because maybe you're going to become a search engine and sell ads, but it's very likely that at this point your company needs other stuff. And you have to have the guts to find out your own way into an agile transformation. And you also need the patience to alter the direction where it's necessary now. It doesn't help if you know that you have to instill more transparency, but you're not ready, or your organization is not ready, or no one wants that. Then you simply have to wait and need this patience. Okay. And the last thing of the things that affect leaders today, in my opinion, is the attribution. It's something that really stands in the way of a true agile transformation, and it's very difficult. So if you're thinking about your own company, there are most likely targets, bonuses, individual pays, pay for performance, performance reviews, and those things. And people earn money through their individual performance. And now let's assume we want to truly become agile, then we have to get rid of that. And just in theory, let's assume we wanted to get rid of this. How do we do that? So can we just kick the bonus and not pay it? Probably not. Like someone who earns 25% as a bonus day won't be willing to just get rid of it and not get it anymore. It's questionable if you're actually allowed to reduce his payment this way. And I assume that most of your employees you want to keep, so you can't do it. So you could pay the full bonus, or at least what people actually reached the last times or last years, and just convert this bonus into a fixed payment. That's actually a solution. And it's also the only solution that I've seen working so far. But are you ready to do this right now? Like get rid of all the bonuses and make them fixed payments? Probably not. It's probably not the first step you want to do. At the same time, at some point, you'll have to think about it, because if you're giving them individual incentives, those individual incentives will always backfire on all the things that you want to do with instilling trust, instilling transparency. And like, if I get a bonus on getting new clients, I don't want to share all the information about these clients in our CRM system so that someone else can get these clients, because then I'm not going to get a bonus. So only if the bonus goes away and we all get fixed payments, then I'm able and willing to share. And this is a truly difficult situation for companies that are successful and that at least think that they live off these bonuses and that their employees are motivated because of these bonuses. And to get over this belief is something that is not easy. In my opinion, it's kind of the hardest part of it all. I wouldn't start there. But you have to know it has to be tackled one day. If you don't, it's probably going to be difficult to truly become an agile company. So, a small summary of this first step. Is it real? Like, does your top management really mean it when you're doing an agile transformation? Or is it more of a, you put up a political defense shield and then you have a small area that has some sort of agility in it? Do you have transparency and trust? Do you have the right software to support it? Are you going those baby steps? Are you patient? And can you accumulate the power to kill the individual attribution? Bonuses are fine, by the way, as long as they are like overall bonuses for all of the people in an organization, or at least a business unit. But I would say in an organization. So the next element is extreme agile leadership, and that's more of a popcorn style of popcorn bag of anecdotes that I'm going to tell you. Don't mistake those 4 things here as a thought through concept. It's more of a adaptation of the linchpin intranet logo. So our marketing people probably thought it was a good idea to sneak that into this slide. I will present the next things like a popcorn bag. So please bear with me if the next things don't really follow a red line altogether. It's more of the most important things that we thought we should share to give you a feeling of how Seibert Media does agility in our organization. So let's talk about collaboration. That's been a wild ride for Seibert Media. The company was founded in 1996, but until 2009, I would say it was more of we wanted to have a good workplace where everyone wants to work, but we were more of a paternalistic style of management where it was centrally driven. So we had like 14 years of trial and error until we consistently began to work in the right direction. It's been a very long journey. Where when we think of employees and also managers or leaders, we think of a double T-shaped concept where what you can say is as an employee, you are a specialist as one thing. This is like the small T element. You're a database specialist, and maybe you fix a performance bottleneck in a database as you're such a pro. And then you work with a coworker on a concept for UI design because she needs a tester. You may not be the best UI tester and you don't know the most about UI design, but you're part of this team and you're available and she needs you, and that's why you pitch in. And then you're helping to make a coffee for a customer. That's very common at Seibert Media, as we have those barista style Coffee machines, you have to be kind of a trained pro to do a coffee. So that simple task can be performed by the CEO in our company, for example. It happens. And after that, you may join a retrospective of your team and talk about how they control their emotions and become more self-aware, which is a totally social management style thing and has nothing to do with your database specialty. And that's something that is truly state of art, in my opinion. There's no place for people who simply can code, who simply can do awesome software. We need people who form a team, who support it to excel. There's no I in team. It's very difficult if you're only able to write awesome software, but you can't work with other people. That's no longer a good concept in 2019, in my opinion. It's been a long ride until we truly found out how we wanted to change the company as a whole by not having the CEO changing the company as a whole. And Scrum really led the way for our Agile organization, as this framework offered a lot of structure that we could copy into several things. Like at first with strategy meetings, then we introduced a open space kind of area where we could all talk about things that needed optimization. And now we have this Agile org process, which is basically a enterprise Scrum process that every employee can join in, and they can actually bring stories that will then prioritized by the Agile org story team. And these Agile org stories, they're really, really powerful. Like we're deciding elemental things of business strategy, of budgets for pay raises and other stuff in those Agile organization processes or stories. And those are often driven by employees who don't have shares, who are not those usual suspects for changing the organization in a company. And let's talk about some basic aspects that help you create circumstances that foster collaboration. First is team dynamics. Bruce Tuckman found this out in 1965 already. So it's really a long time ago, and we still see a lot of our customers, and maybe you're part of this as well, they switch employees between teams all the time. So they're doing capacity management where they say, oh, 20% this employee is here and 20% he's there, and then they fill their time until it's 80% or 100%. And it doesn't create a team that excels this way. You will have individuals who will try to work together as much as possible. But according to Tuckman, and we see this over and over again both in research and also in our own company, multiple assignments to teams are toxic. You want, ideally, to assign one person to one team. And then they can start to form, to storm, to norm, and to perform. I'm not going to explain this, the theory, but it's reasonable and well tested. And what we're trying to make sure that we really have interdisciplinary teams that can work autonomous and that are not dependent on specialists from special teams or department. It doesn't always work. So we do have teams of specialists, but we're always striving to integrate them into the team as soon as we can, and to find out how much of those specialties do we need in a team, so that either the existing interdisciplinary team can adopt those skills, or we can grow more people to work in those teams that have these skills. Then it's also a question of culture. William Schneider did a pretty interesting research on this, where he has 4 quadrants of how your culture today works. Like, it's more of a command and control style. It's a competency style where competition is very vital. Cultivating is more visionary, values-driven, purpose-driven things. And where Seibert Media lives is more of a collaboration style where trust and teamwork and working together is valued. And the interesting thing is, your culture is neither good or bad. It's just a reflection of how you behave as a company. And getting aware of where you stand is absolutely helpful. And then you can say, oh, our business demands that we shift this, that we develop new behaviors. But getting your status quo clear, both for you and your employees, is pretty helpful. So William Schneider may help you as well. Decentralization is a very important topic for a true Agile company. So Niels Fliegen is calling this a peach organization. And it's teaching you that the central elements are only serving the periphery. So it's not like Louis XIV, the French king who ruled it all, and where the central piece has the highest power and disseminates it through the periphery. It's more the periphery leads. They actually take decisions, and the central part in the peach, they serve them. And it's kind of upside down the normal org chart thinking of people. This is an old adaptation of the peach organization model for Seibert Media. I just showed it to you to make sure that, like, those teams in the white bubbles, like Team Google, Candy Mountain, Conference Consulting, Linchpin Universe, and so on, they actually serve our customers, the further external peaches, or for the market. And the central things, they're just helping them do this. They don't rule what they can do or can't do. They just try to offer finances, HR, marketing, other stuff for them. And then there's also things where we still have, like, marketing should be part of the team. Truly should be part of the team. At this point, marketing is still a very central thing for Seibert Media. And I can't justify that. Like, we're not truly agile in this way, but it's still the way how we work, how Seibert Media works as a company. And I don't want to change it because it's working awesomely. So it's wrong. I do want to change it, but it has to fit our needs. And at this point, this central department style of organization does fit our needs better than doing it decentralized. And we tried it decentralized. It was a big mess. So we realigned centrally and do that centrally again. I can tell you in a couple of years how this evolved. In a truly agile company, I would assume that this marketing has to be decentralized. Maybe we're not big enough. We'll see. Augenhöhe. I've searched a long time for trying to get a good translation for that. The literal translation would be working on eye level, but probably respecting one another is better. Ricardo Semler had treat your employees like grown-ups. So don't pretend that they can't do and decide for themselves, that you have to tend them all the time. It sounds like a very easy case, but it means, for example, to make salary differences between people transparent. And that can be very difficult. But for grown-ups, why shouldn't you? And so that's something that we have worked a long time, and it's difficult. Way more difficult than just to put it on a slide. And then you can talk that much about it because it's so easy. Just make things transparent, for example. Then you also, especially for new employees, you have to make sure that people see the rules and boundaries clearly. For us, this is a wiki page where there's a table and you can see who was allowed to do what, and they won't hit electric fences that have been invisible. So you walk within your company and then you hit an electric fence because there was a rule that you couldn't see. And that's something that we try to do a lot. Like, we're very transparent. We're announcing a lot of stuff. And it also means that we require people to take in a lot of information, a lot of change, and a lot of minor details about our company. But with the right software tools, it's pretty simple and straightforward. People can do it on the go, on an app. We have information radiators in our company that will show news. And obviously there's also a website style of intranet based on Atlassian Confluence and this Linchpin software, where people can easily find out. Salary is often the elephant in the room. It's the obvious thing that should become transparent, and at the same time we do not speak about it. People often can't see others' salaries. At the same time, we do pretend, and it's one of the things that I highly see adopted in Agile transformations. So we hire as a team. But how do you hire as a team if you don't know the salary of the other people? It's kind of very difficult. And one of the things, if you really want to go down this path of making salaries transparent in your company, one thing that I can tell you from our own experience is people can bear unfair payments. Intransparency breeds those golden handshakes and those uneven shares of salaries, and making salaries transparent will show it to the people, right? You'll have people who do awesome jobs and other people do the same jobs, but they only get half the pay. And then say, oh, we're on the same level performance-wise, but I only get half the pay. And what I can give you as an experience from our processes, people can live with such a situation. They don't like it, and they want you to change that. But there's two ways, and we had both. Like, one thing is, the one guy who gets half the payment just gets too less money. So you'll have to up him in his salary level until he meets the other one. Or the other one is way too high. So you can hire people on this level, but you pay him this level. But still he's doing an okay enough job so that you don't want to fire him. So people just have, like, we had 5 people on this level and then one guy on this level. And they had just to bear that this guy earned more. And this is obviously way more difficult than upping the others. But upping the others also means that you need money additional money to give to them. And both of those unfair payment differences are not easy to deal with. And it's kind of at the core of an Agile organization, in my opinion, to deal with those things, because it always almost always feels easier to not deal with this transparency issue in the company. But there's a lot of other aspects to transparency as well. You don't need to start with salaries. How about open books or joint strategy creation, joint onboarding, and those things. Coming back to those electrical fences, we have created a Wer darf was board, like who is allowed to do what board. And it's a very plain and simple and not painful at all exercise where you can say, I have a topic, I have a decision maker, I have someone who can consult, and I have a place where I disseminate the information about it. For example, for vacation, their employee can decide when to take a vacation on his own. He has to consult with his team. The team can't decide or can't veto, but he still has to ask them. And then the information is through his personal calendar. He'll put in his vacation, and that's it. So I know what the rules are. Or if you want to have stuff that you work with, like Apple AirPods, for example, same thing. The employee can decide. The team is asked, and it's documented in a wiki page that you order something, our Werder-Fassboard. Then we have a lot of discussions about classical careers and how people, in classical careers, people get more money and more power on every new level. But power is a democratic concept in an agile organization, so you can't always have more power. So currently we try to capture the personal goals for our employees and find out with them in we call this perspective conversation. So what do they want to reach within the company? And sometimes we find out something that employees want is beyond the reach that the organization can do. But it's elevating to see how close the reality and our employees or our employees' dreams are together. They are smart people. And what we've also found out is these conversations, they drive a situation where we find out that we can't meet the expectation. And then we can help them move on. And it's a very cooperative process when we work with employees who we together found out with that they wanted to achieve something else that we can't offer. And it all comes with transparency. If you have the guts to say, oh, this powerful career thing we can't offer. And if this is something that you really want to do, maybe we'll have to find a different solution, both. Then a lot of people in Agile talk about North Star. I personally think it's kind of overestimated, but it is true that at a certain level, it's pretty helpful to give people a vision where we want to go. And there's a long description that I'm not going to read out here, and especially it's German, so it wouldn't help a lot. And then we have a catchy short one, which is English Kickass software, rock and roll teams. And it's summarizing very well that we want to help companies work with awesome software, and the software should help to make their teams rock and roll. And it's catchy. And it's also an easy way of deciding, oh, this is not part of our business. We didn't do it. There's a lot of things that come up again and again where we think of quality assurance testing, test cases. It's something that customers ask us over and over again. And we found that we don't believe that quality assurance, which is actually a sequential element of a waterfall process, is something that is helping Agile teams truly thrive. It's not creating rock and roll teams. You can have kick-ass software for quality assurance, but it's just not our topic. It doesn't fit with our vision. It doesn't fit with our values. And so we can't be the best partner of our company, of our customers, to do that. And so it's one thing to have a vision, and the other is to let it inform stuff that you turn down afterwards. And we don't have Ethikrat anymore, but we do turn down interesting jobs of very interesting companies because it doesn't fit our vision. There's also in peer recruiting is something that comes with transparency, and as I said, you'll find out what's the right payment for the new candidate. We also define pay raises within the team, and we have a room for that. And this is a picture of this room where in the circles, you'll put the people of your team, and then you see the distribution visually on the wall. And then you can move people in different cycles. And this way, for example, if we know we want to talk about a fair distribution of a budget within a team, for example, or we want to move one guy has applied for a pay raise, then we will put on his peers and other people and maybe also other team members that we want him to compare with and see whether the overall architecture of salaries is still intact when we give him this pay raise, for example. There's also things that we can do better. For example, the ability not to spread money evenly between all people is pretty hard. So if you give 5 people 5K, the most likely solution is that they'll spread 1K evenly above or over all of those 5 people, which is an easy solution. In almost all cases, it's not the fairest solution, and deciphering between what's right market-wise and what's an easy solution and what's something that really fits with our company is not too easy for us at this point. And living with those challenges is also something that is difficult, but we're getting better at this. Then on an organizational level, let's talk a little bit about how we decide, how we organize those pay raises, how we see leadership in the company. So when we started in 1996, there were only 2 methods of deciding. The first was the CEO, that was me, and maybe my brother, decides. So hierarchical, power-based decisions. And the second decision was the CEO doesn't care, so we have a democratic majority vote, which is bullshit. People hate it, and so there's much better things. For example, systemic consenting is not measuring the agreement, but it's measuring the level of objection. So if you're not for something, but not against either, in systemic consenting, you're fine. Only if you really have a feasible objection, then we'll take you into account. And this is a very good method if you have to decipher between multiple evils. So systemic consenting is something that people, or at least we've found to be pretty helpful for a lot of things at Seibert Media. A consultative decision making is also something that really transformed how we do decisions. So if things are not that important, we just assign one person or a group of people, and they then consult with people and make a decision, and everyone else respects afterwards. Consent is also a pretty good thing. Like, we'll do something if no one has a veto. So we have maybe 5 people who really want to do this, summed up, and then we have 20 people who say, I'll go with this. I'm not actually for it, but I'm not against it. But as soon as we're one guy vetoing it, we're not doing it. That's consent. Also a pretty interesting thing. We don't do majority voting at all anymore. So majority voting is dead. That's not our style. We don't do majority voting at Seibert Media. And then let me explain how we do pay raises at Seibert Media. The first and best of all is I'm not involved. Although I'm the CEO, it's a big relief for me not to be involved in that. We have an interdisciplinary team of all teams and roles that run this process. People can vote for the group, and they can also, what is more important is they vote or they assign 2 people who they think can fairly assess their payment. And those 2 people are stored in the table. And when this group of Gehaltsentscheider is unsure or needs more information, they can go to those people and ask them. And we approach the problem of pay raises from 3 angles. First is the employee triggers the process and tells us what he wants to earn and why. In the best case, this is a result of a mentoring journey with his mentoring teams. And then this team will look into the case and define a team who will make this consultative decision. So maybe it's 2 or 3 people who will look at this case, consult with all of the people that they think they should be consulting, and then they take a decision. The team is also asked to make sure that the overall architecture of salaries stay intact or trigger further action. So if, for example, your salary would be risen, I would want to make sure that yours is also rechecked because you're doing the same performance or whatever. It's still a big mess. Like pay raises and salaries at large have always been a big mess with us. We've changed a lot in the past, and it's definitely not easy to find a simple solution. The good thing about this is it's a decentralized process. It's a process that is not steered by power. It's a clear process that people can easily understand. It's also prone to errors, as all things, and we are still figuring it out. Maybe in 5 years' time, I can tell you how pay raises can be done awesomely in an agile organization, but it's a difficult thing, definitely. We also see that there's new roles in leadership that appear in our company, and that's mainly because there's a separation of methods and technical knowledge, like planning, analyzing, estimating, quality assuring, domain experience, organization, technical skills, and their development. And the other role is more people who help on a social level, help you work with humans, resolving conflicts, understanding team dynamics. And that's actually 2 different people. Like we rarely see people who are great in both of those leadership roles. And there's an even distribution of people who really are specialists in their domain and help other people excel there. And then we have people who are really good at this intangible people social stuff. Self-reflection, like improving the system instead of searching for someone to blame, is something that is very important in an agile organization. If you understand the circumstances that create the behavior, that's a big first step. If the behavior of the coworkers look like bullshit, you should ask first, are there circumstances that make them behave like this? Is your system creating this? Or are really the people that stupid? In most cases, people just behave like the system steers them to behave. The errors are often pretty kind of likely. So your task is to think, how can we change this so that it's very unlikely that this error is occurring again in the future? And it's a switch. Like a lot of companies that we work with, they are still just searching for the one to blame, and then they blame them, and then they move on. Giving freedom to people. So the translation, like Verzehnarbeit und Mission about bekommt Schafe. So if you're building fences around humans, you harvest sheep. So one powerful and simple solution is to reduce the rules, less fences, kill guidelines, and all things that pretend that life is complicated. Because in most cases, projects, for example, you meet complex situations and they hurt. If you look at the travel expense guideline, people can't fly business on a plane. They cannot book first class on a train. That sounds reasonable, right? But is it? We can easily construct a situation where incurring more cost is a smart trade, because people will be rested when they arrive, they won't be jet lagged, whatever reason. People often argue with us that there can be exceptions to the rule, but people don't apply for the rule. And they don't have time and willingness to do that. And often the rules for breaking rules are very loosely defined. So what you can do, if you're a leader, is you can use your political defense shield to give those exceptions to people. Tell them, book the business class flight or book the first class train seat if that is what our business needs. And I'm going to help you do that. And but you also have to be transparent, because everyone in your team then should see and should be able to question that. And then people also ask, like, what do we do with those experiments if they fail? And they will fail. What if some layman in my team made all poor decisions that foreseeable led to the failure? And actually what you have to do is you have to stand before him and defend him, at least outside of your political defense shield. Within your team or your protection area, you should make things transparent. You let all people discuss and judge. My suggestion is not to involve yourself too much. Other people without personal stakes that are often very sharp and strict because they know that abusing will directly lead to a less strong political defense shield. So they make sure that people don't abuse, for example, your travel expense guideline. Mentoring is a big thing for us, but we don't have any HR development plans. We do have mentors, and we do require employees to choose them, but they don't have to actively work with them. Sometimes others approach mentors when they cannot easily resolve a problem directly with someone. And some employees actively choose mentors, meet with them, make plans, deliver on those plans. That's probably the closest to the ideal career that HR people often have in mind. But it's a free flow process at Seibert Media. So people can do it, or they can just stay put. Diversity is something that took me a long time to understand. Uniformity is not a strength. It's easy to be misguided in a vision that is a factory where value is created systematically by hundreds of people. But in a complex world, you can't produce value in a factory. Humans do, and they are diverse in nature, and fostering this is incredibly valuable. If you create value in factories in your business today, you should be thinking about automation. Because automation will rule the complicated world very soon. It already does. And if it doesn't do it in your area, it probably is going to arrive there pretty soon. But for complex areas, value creation, automation is no solution. So the biggest challenge that I see is that people often simply don't know anything. Like I'm a Christian, and I didn't know a lot about Muslims, and I hear people ask, like, why aren't they eating? They don't drink the whole day, but it's hot. People have to drink. They won't perform. And if you think like this, you're invading into people's privacy. They can choose what they do, and it's simply not your job. And actually, it would be against the law to tell them you have to drink now. And while Muslims do that, it's training their willpower. They can claim significant amount of good reasons, and also cultural and religious reasons, and also scientific reasons to do that. And then there's colleagues who binge every night or every weekend, and it hurts their corporate performance much more. And we often have a blind eye on this. And my suggestion is, as a manager, you should start asking people about the culture, embrace the learning about it, travel to those countries, and with understanding comes a lot of, or with this knowledge comes a lot of understanding and respect. At Seibert Media, we do see people from other countries and cultures and religion, and with other traditions. that really add to our value creation in companies. Some of them really lead the way in their teams, and I would never want to miss them. So working and understanding them and their culture, especially in the areas where it differs with your own behaviors, is something that it's pretty simple. It can be a very simple conversation where you just try to find out, and it does help working with other people in the long run. If you try to cope with your team members, you have to have a feeling of where they are. Like David Logan has a concept called tribal leadership, and he defines 5 levels. Life sucks, my life sucks, I'm great, we're great, and life is great. And depending on where the tribe is, like where the team is, it doesn't help to offer them a vision, because a vision will only help them to get from level 4 to level 5. And values most likely help them to get from level 3 to level 4. So first assess where the team stands or where the tribe stands, and then you can work on giving them tools or methods that may help them get to the next step. We've also worked a lot with type indicators and personality tests like HBDI, Herman Brain Dominance Instrument, or MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicators. Those are personality tests, and the basic message is it's much better if you understand the people you're working with. How do they tick? How can you reach them best? I think it's a good thing if you focus on the needs of others. I never dive too deep into those personality tests, and I didn't memorize the different things. And just like people in our company do that, I don't see it deployed that often. So still, it made the slide. And then almost at the end, let's talk a little bit about the market and how we focus on innovation and those things. We do not focus too much in this presentation at Seibert Media. It's not our challenge. We have an abundance of customers asking us for services. So it may be pure luck. It may be because of the economy, and especially our industry is booming. But it's not as much of our focus. So could be a bad thing. You always have blind spots where you need to improve. This may be something where we can grow. But let's at least talk on one slide about innovation. So we do a lot of things. Let me point out 3 here. Hackathons. That's a bi-yearly event in our company. Every 6 months. We start on a Thursday at 4 p.m. and the event lasts for 24 hours. And incredible things have been created during hackathons. Hackathons are good for developers and doers. And a good alternative to that is an open space unconference format, where people are allowed to talk about things that they deem most important in this very situation. They can go in and go out easily. There are rules to open space unconferences. And it's very good for managers and thinkers. You get awesome concepts out of that, really changing strategies. And the third that I want to highlight is communities of practice. As we're trying to make teams autonomous and interdisciplinary, they want a community of practice where they can meet with specialists and talk about specialist knowledge about how to code in software, how to do this continuous delivery, we missed out on that for a long time, and that's been very helpful for our people to stay cutting edge with their specialty knowledge. Yeah, that's almost it. There's a lot of things to read that I would recommend to you. I'm not going to talk about all of these books. A lot of them are in German, and there's no English translation, so this is only for people who know German, but a lot of them are also in English. And one special recommendation that I have, I didn't read it yet, is Open Space Beta from Nils Pfleging and Silke Herrmann. They just published this book, and it claims to help you transform or flip things in your company in 90 days. And I didn't read it yet, but you can go first and tell me. It's definitely worth a try. Yeah, and that's it. If you want to reach me, there's my data. And also the slides and the speaker notes that I've used, you can find at the link below. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.